Picture this. You're sitting in the hallway of a family home, and there is a young Bernese Mountain Dog in the room.
Oh, boy. I can already picture it.
Right. And physically, I mean, this dog is already enormous. We're talking massive paws, a huge, heavy frame, just a genuinely giant animal.
Yeah, easily pushing 80 or 90 pounds.
Exactly. But mentally, underneath all of that physical maturity, they're still very much a puppy.
Completely a puppy.
So suddenly the doorbell rings, and immediately the dog's entire back half starts swinging along with their tail.
Like a windshield wiper.
Yes. And they just rush toward the visitor in the hallway. Now, to be clear, there is absolutely zero aggression here. It is just, well, unfiltered, overwhelming enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
They lean, they jump, they try to climb up. They basically fill the entire hallway with a level of physical affection that is, honestly, just a little too big for the space.
It's such a vivid image, and I imagine for the owner, and probably the visitor at first, everyone is laughing.
Right, because it's cute.
Yeah, it is genuinely sweet to see a creature that happy. But watch that exact same scene play out for just like 3 seconds longer, and the reality of the physics completely shifts.
Oh, yeah, the physics of a giant dog.
Exactly. A young child standing in that hallway takes a nervous step back. An older adult has to, physically brace their forearm against the drywall to keep their balance.
Or the leash just goes incredibly taut and burns the owner's hand.
Right. And suddenly it becomes very clear that this dog's pure love, because it has no behavioral framework behind it yet, has actually manifested as a genuine physical safety hazard.
The problem was never the dog's heart, really. It's just the pure physics of the situation.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is the primary mission of our deep dive today. We are looking at some incredibly detailed source material on Bernese Mountain Dog behavior, and the core thesis here is crucial.
It really is.
The challenge with this breed isn't a lack of affection. The challenge is learning the actual mechanics of helping a giant, highly sensitive dog express that affection safely.
Safely being the key word there.
Right. And perhaps more importantly, we're going to explore how to read their everyday behavior as a hidden dashboard for their physical health.
Which is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, we are moving away from looking at a dog's actions as just a list of, good or bad choices. And we're starting to look at them as neurological responses and physical symptoms.
So whether you own a giant breed yourself, or you just want to understand the mechanics of animal psychology on a deeper level, this deep dive is going to completely reframe how you look at what we so often label as a stubborn attitude.
Definitely.
But to solve that hallway jumping problem we just visualized, we have to first dismantle the biggest misconception about the Bernese Mountain Dog's famous temperament.
Right, because the sources validate what most people already think they know, which is that Bernese Mountain Dogs are genetically predisposed to be incredibly steady.
They're gentle giants.
Yeah, they are gentle, they're highly people-oriented, and they form these intense, glued-to-your-side bonds with their families.
Which sounds perfect.
It sounds perfect, but the text emphasizes a really crucial trap that owners fall into, that gentle temperament. It's just a baseline.
Oh, I see.
It does not come pre-installed as a finished, polished behavior plan.
Wait, so it's a bit like buying a high-end computer then?
How do you mean?
Well, the hardware is incredibly capable, right? It has all the processing power in the world to be a gentle giant, but you still have to actually sit down and code the operating system.
Oh, that is a great way to put it. The hardware is all there, absolutely, but the software hasn't been written yet.
Right.
And you see this neurological gap most clearly during the adolescent phase.
The teenage dog phase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happens biologically is that the dog's skeletal and muscular systems grow exceptionally fast, way faster than the frontal lobe of their brain can mature.
And the frontal lobe handles impulse control, right?
Yes, so their confidence fluctuates wildly depending on the day, but their actual physical mass is increasing by the week.
So a habit that was, cute and entirely manageable when they were a 40-pound puppy like, putting their paws on your chest to say hello.
Becomes a literal incoming projectile when you are dealing with an 80 or 90-pound adolescent who still genuinely thinks they are tiny.
They have no idea how big they are.
None at all. And this is the stage where the behavior often breaks down.
Yeah, I can imagine owners getting super frustrated.
They do. Owners look at this massive dog and they just assume the dog is being deliberately defiant simply because the physical management feels so overwhelming.
But really, the brain is just lagging behind the body.
Exactly. They don't have the neural pathways built up yet to hit the brakes on their own excitement.
And I imagine you can't just, forcefully dominate a dog that size into submission either.
No, absolutely not.
So if we are trying to code that software, what are the actual mechanics of training a dog that outweighs some adults?
Well, the sources are definitive on this. They are highly capable learners, but their motivation profile is very specific.
Okay, what do they want?
They are driven by food, verbal praise, physical closeness, and the opportunity to just sniff and explore.
Very natural dog things.
Right. And they require highly focused, very short training sessions. If you drill them for an hour, their brain fatigues and they just check
Kids
out.
get bored.
Oh, completely. And the absolute hardest boundary mentioned in the text, they cannot tolerate harshness.
Wait, really? None at all?
None. Heavy physical pressure, shouting, or confusing expectations, none of that teaches this breed what to do.
It just scares them.
It floods their nervous system with stress, causing them to shut down entirely, or they just start avoiding the handler.
Wow. Okay, so because that adolescent body is outpacing the brain so rapidly, basic household manners actually stop being about politeness.
Right.
I mean, they become strict safety protocols.
Right.
If we go back to that opening scene at the doorbell, how do we actually mechanically stop a 90-pound dog from rushing the door?
So the concept requires intense consistency to override the dog's impulses. You must heavily reward the dog for having all four paws on the floor before the visitor even enters.
Okay, but you can't just hope they do it, right?
No, you don't leave the greeting to chance. You have to manage the environment physically.
Like with a leash.
Yes, you use a heavy leash or structural baby gate during the training process.
Yeah.
You are physically preventing the dog from rehearsing the jumping behavior.
Because every time they jump and, get away with it, they're just practicing the bad habit.
Exactly. That neural pathway just gets stronger and stronger.
I can totally see the owner putting in all this work with a leash and a gate. But what about the visitors themselves?
Oh, visitors.
Because human nature is a massive obstacle here, isn't it? I know so many people who walk in, they see a giant fluffy dog jumping on them, and they immediately go, oh, it's totally fine. I love dogs. Let them jump.
Yes, people feel rude ignoring the dog. But that human social pressure absolutely destroys the training. Visitors absolutely cannot be allowed to reward the jumping, no matter how much they claim they don't mind.
Because it confuses the dog.
Well, if an owner allows that, they are introducing intermittent reinforcement. It's the slot machine effect.
Oh, the slot machine effect. Explain that.
So if the dog jumps 10 times and gets ignored 9 times, but the 10th visitor pets them and says, who's a good boy?
The dog learns that jumping actually does work.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just have to keep trying until it pays out. The behavior actually becomes harder to break than if you had never trained them at all.
That is wild. And I bet that slot machine effect applies to leash manners, too.
Oh, 100%.
If you let an 80-pound dog pull you toward a squirrel even once, they learn that pulling equals forward momentum.
And if a Bernese pulls, you're not walking them. You're just water skiing on the pavement.
Water skiing, exactly.
The physics of the leash are really unforgiving, and this breed has an intense opposition reflex.
Opposition reflex, what is that?
If they feel pressure on the front of their chest, their instinct is to actually lean harder into it.
Oh, much like a sled dog.
Exactly like a sled dog.
Right.
So pulling must be corrected early while the dog is still physically small enough to manage.
Right, when they're 40 pounds, not 90.
Yes. You build a habit of the dog checking in with your face, rewarding eye contact rather than letting the environment dictate their focus.
And if they still pull?
The sources are very pragmatic here. If the pulling gets severe despite your work, you bring in a professional trainer immediately. You do not try to muscle through it alone.
That makes total sense. Now that brings us to another highly volatile environment for a giant dog, which is family life.
Very true.
There is a standout quote from the text that I think every parent listening needs to internalize. The text explicitly says, child-friendly doesn't mean child-proof.
I love that quote because this breed is a wonderful, patient family companion, but that massive size requires active adult supervision.
Right. Children must not climb on them, ride them, chase them.
Or disturb them when they are sleeping.
And to be clear, the text isn't warning that the dog is suddenly going to turn into a predator and attack the child.
No, it's not about malicious aggression at all. It's about the inherent danger of the size difference and a concept called trigger stacking.
Trigger stacking.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that look like in a family home?
So a dog living in a busy household is dealing with kids running around, loud toys being grabbed, unpredictable movements.
Just everyday chaos.
Right. And every one of those events is a minor stressor. Over the course of a day, those stressors stack up.
Ah, I see.
If an adult isn't actively supervising and intervening, the dog's nervous system just becomes totally overloaded.
So they hit a breaking point just from sensory exhaustion.
Precisely. This is why the sources insist the dog must have a genuinely safe resting space where they are completely off limits to everyone.
Like a crate or a quiet room.
Yes. That space acts as a pressure release valve for their nervous system. You cannot assume that just because a child has good intentions and the dog is naturally gentle, that the dog isn't silently accumulating stress.
Wow. And if a dog needs that kind of pressure release valve just to survive a Tuesday afternoon in their own living room, taking a dog this sensitive out into a chaotic public space must require a completely different strategy.
It does, and what's fascinating here is how fundamentally we misunderstand the mechanics of socialization.
How so?
Well, the general public assumes that socializing a Bernese means marching them into a crowded farmer's market, letting every single stranger on the street pet them, and forcing them to interact with every dog they walk past.
Yeah, people treat socialization walks like they're taking the dog to a fraternity party.
Exactly.
They think the dog needs to be the life of the party, interacting with everyone.
But throwing them into the middle of the party often just floods their sensory threshold. True socialization for this breed is actually about classical conditioning from a distance.
From a distance?
Yeah, it's teaching the dog to be the calm wallflower. Sit on a park bench and observe children running 50 feet away.
Just watching.
Right. You walk on strange grates, you listen to sirens, you watch other dogs from across the street without ever being forced to make physical contact.
So you were trying to build calm confidence.
Exactly.
You want a dog that acknowledges the environment without their heart rate spiking, rather than a dog that is in a constant state of overwhelming, frantic excitement every time they leave the driveway.
You are teaching their nervous system that the world is interesting, but ultimately neutral.
Neutral. I like that. But let me challenge this neutrality concept based on the source text.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because these dogs have a deep farm dog heritage in the Swiss Alps, right?
They do.
The text explicitly mentions they were bred to work and watch over the farm. So doesn't that mean they are genetically hardwired to be watchful guard dogs?
That's a very common assumption.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to try and train that instinct out of them.
Well, this raises an important question, and it's a vital distinction the sources draw. Protective does not mean aggressive.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The Bernese does have a watchful instinct. They are highly attuned to changes in their environment. If someone approaches the property, they will notice.
Sure.
But that instinct has to be guided, not sharpened.
Because I imagine if you intentionally try to sharpen a giant dog into a guard dog, you just end up with an unpredictable liability.
A huge liability.
So how do you actually guide that instinct without punishing it?
By teaching them an off switch. If they alert to a noise at the window by barking, you don't punish the bark. They're actually doing their job.
Right.
But you manage the escalation, you acknowledge the alert, and you heavily reward the dog the precise second they settle back down and disengage.
Oh, so you're teaching them how to recover their emotional baseline after a spike in arousal.
Exactly. You never praise them for escalating into a frenzy. A well-guided Bernese should be a steady observer, not a reactive alarm system.
That's a great way to frame it. And managing that working dog heritage clearly requires giving their mind a structured job.
It absolutely does.
Which connects directly to the intense, and sometimes, I guess, suffocating bond they form with their humans.
Yes, because of that farm heritage, this breed really craves a role. But cognitive load is very different from physical exertion.
Right, if you just put them on a treadmill for 2 hours, you aren't really satisfying their brain.
No, you're just building a fitter, more hyperactive athlete.
Which is terrifying. We aren't trying to physically exhaust them, we're trying to give them a crossword puzzle to solve.
That mental fatigue is what truly settles the dog. This means engaging them in scent work, teaching them to carry light items on a walk, or engaging in highly structured cooperative grooming sessions.
And they can pull carts too, right?
Yes, later in life. Once their growth plates are fully closed and they are physically mature, you can introduce carting with proper equipment. It connects directly to their history.
But all of this relies on deep engagement with the owner.
It does, which creates what the text basically describes as a separation catch-22.
A catch-22.
Yeah, you build this incredible working bond, and the dog naturally wants to be glued to you.
The ultimate Velcro dog.
It's incredibly common for a Bernese to follow you from the kitchen to the bathroom or to just lean their entire body weight against your shins while you cook.
I've definitely seen that.
It is a biological expression of their attachment, but owners absolutely must actively engineer independence into the dog's daily life.
But you can't just, lock a dog that attached in a room for 8 hours to force independence.
Oh, please don't.
I assume that would just induce a panic attack. So how do you decouple them mechanically?
It has to be gradual. You utilize those safe spaces we mentioned earlier, practicing very short separations while you are still in the house.
Like leaving them in the room for 5 minutes.
Exactly. You establish highly predictable daily routines so the dog doesn't feel anxious about what comes next. And critically, and this is hard for people, you keep your returns low-key.
No massive emotional homecomings.
Right. If you throw a party every time you walk back through the front door, you are basically validating the dog's anxiety.
You are telling them you were right to be terrified. My absence was a massive event.
Yes. Instead, you walk in, you ignore the dog for 2 minutes while you put your keys away, and you teach them that your coming and going is incredibly boring.
Boring is good. But what if the dog is beyond just following you around? What if you try these gradual separations and the dog is actively destroying the door frame to get to you?
The sources are unequivocal here. If the dog is showing genuine panic, tearing up the house, severely vocalizing when alone, or engaging in any kind of self-injury,
That's severe.
very severe. Do not assume it is a phase that will naturally resolve. That level of distress requires immediate intervention from a veterinarian or a certified behavior professional.
Which brings us to the ultimate pivot of this deep dive.
Yes.
We have this entire framework for teaching them to be calm observers, giving their mind a job, setting boundaries. But let's look at the scenario where that entire framework just shatters. You ask them to do that mental crossword puzzle, where you clip on the leash, and they just plant their feet and totally refuse. Here's where it gets really interesting,
It really does.
because the most important takeaway from the source material is this. Behavior is a health dashboard.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a sudden change in behavior is almost always a medical issue, not a lapse in your training.
We as humans are so quick to assume a dog is just acting out or being stubborn.
We really are. But dogs are masters at hiding pain. Often, their behavior is the literal only language they have to tell you their body is failing.
And the text gives examples of this that completely reframe how you look at a dog. Like, if your Bernese suddenly dislikes going up the stairs, your first thought shouldn't be that they forgot their training.
No, it's highly likely they are experiencing early joint pain.
Or if they suddenly stop greeting visitors at the door, they might just feel nauseous or unwell internally.
Exactly. If they snap or become irritable when you pet their side, it's usually localized physical discomfort.
Even the classic stubbornness on a walk.
Oh, especially that.
If a 90-pound dog just sits down on the sidewalk and refuses to move, it doesn't mean they're trying to assert dominance over you.
Right. They might be physically overheated, their paw pads might be sore, or they are just structurally exhausted.
Disobedience is rarely the simplest explanation.
Rarely. And because of this reality, a concept called cooperative care becomes absolute non-negotiable for a giant breed.
Now, I understand the theory of cooperative care, but practically, taking a 90-pound dog to the vet when they don't want to be there sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It can be.
How do you actually practice this mechanically? Are you just bribing them with treats while you touch their ears?
It's much deeper than bribery, actually. It's about giving the dog agency.
Giving a dog agency.
Yes. You train the dog to opt in to handling. For example, you teach a chin rest. The dog places their chin flat in your hand. And as long as their chin stays down, you examine their ears or clip a nail, and they get rewarded. But the moment they lift their head, that is their consent-style pause, you stop everything.
Oh, wow. You literally give them an abort button.
Exactly. Because the dog learns that their head movement actually controls the environment, their anxiety plummets.
They know they aren't trapped.
Right. And ironically, because they know they can stop the exam at any time, they will allow you to do significantly more handling than if you tried to physically restrain them.
Well, yeah. Wrestling a terrified giant breed on a vet table is dangerous for everyone.
Incredibly dangerous.
So the overarching rule of thumb when dealing with this breed is observe the behavior, record the specific changes you are noticing, and loop in the vet immediately.
Always loop in the vet.
Never assume that stubbornness is the final answer.
Right. Observe the symptom first, judge the attitude second. It entirely transforms the empathy you bring to the animal.
So what does this all mean? When we step back and look at the whole picture we've explored today,
It's a lot to take in.
it is, but the core philosophy of raising a Bernese Mountain Dog isn't about giving them less affection just because they are massive.
No, not at all.
The goal certainly isn't to shrink the gentle giant or suppress their watchful spirit. The goal is to provide a framework so that massive affection can be expressed safely.
Safely, yes.
It is to guide their nervous system patiently and consistently so that ultimately their incredible physical strength is safe for you, for the child in the hallway, and for the dog itself.
It really is about translating the science of their development into everyday habits. You're protecting the dog long before any behavioral or physical problems become obvious.
Absolutely. Now, before we close out, we do want to briefly remind you that this deep dive is strictly for educational purposes.
Right.
If you are ever concerned about a dog's health or you notice sudden behavioral changes, you should always consult a licensed veterinarian.
Always.
But as we leave you today, the source material forces a broader connection that I think is hard to ignore.
It really does, because we've spent this time learning that a dog's so-called stubbornness or a sudden bad attitude is very often just an unspoken plea for help with physical pain, heat stress, or sensory exhaustion.
Yeah.
And it forces you to wonder, how often in our own human relationships do we make that exact same mistake?
Oh, wow.
How often do we misinterpret a coworker's burnout or a family member's quiet, invisible suffering as them simply being difficult?
That is a really powerful thought.
Right. Next time someone in your life, whether they're human or canine, is suddenly acting out of character, maybe our first question shouldn't be, why are you being so difficult?
Yeah.
Maybe the first question we should ask is simply, where does it hurt?